Cynthia Esther. I don't see her yet. Irfan Nazarello. And I don't see him yet. And Jane Moran, I am here. So, and I got you, Jim, didn't I? Jim Cirillo?
No, but I'm here though.
Okay, great. Jim Cirillo is here. And so our anticipated speakers on the agenda most likely will be Dave Del Torrio.
Hello.
Matt Chase. And let's see. Oh, and Fire Chief Miller. Thank you for coming.
Good evening.
Welcome and congratulations on your, it's been a couple of months now. But
And September 8th was the official.
Oh yeah, more than a few months.
Yeah.
Perfect. Had a little bit of activity lately too. Good job.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been very busy.
Yeah. All right, so good evening, everyone. And this is the open meeting of the Upper Charles Trail Committee, and it's being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID virus, we are complying with the executive order that suspends the requirement of open meeting laws to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location, and all members of the public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The executive order, which you can find posted with the agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, as long as the public body makes the provisions through adequate alternative means to ensure interested members of the public are provided reasonable access to the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such permission is required by law. But this meeting, however, will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Upper Charles Trail Committee is convening by video conference via Zoom, and posted on the town's website identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. So accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All the supporting materials have been provided to members of the body and are available on the town's website via the web meeting calendar unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. So these are the ground rules. We are now turning first to the first agenda item. Before we do so, please permit me to cover some of the ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will invite the board members to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called further. Please remember to mute your phone or your computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in colloquy with other members, please do so through me, taking care to identify yourself. After the members have spoken, the chair will afford public comments, and the chair will ask first the members of the public who may wish to speak to identify their names and addresses only. And once the chair has a list of all public commenters, then I will call on each by name and afford 3 minutes for all discussions. So finally, having read all that, I'd like to entertain a motion to open the meeting, and I'll call your name and you can respond in the affirmative. Eric Sonnet.
Here.
Ken Parker. I know he's over here somewhere. Eli Post.
I'm here.
Here.
So we're voting to open the meeting. Barry Rosenblum.
Yes.
Bob Snyder.
Yes.
I don't see Cynthia out there yet. She might be jumping on board. Irfan is not out there yet. And Jane is a yes. Okay, so I would like to go to the first agenda item. And there were some comments. We're trying very carefully to take in all the comments and public questions that the public have. And there was some conversation in regards to a bridge and what the fire department might want for accessibility if that were to be built. So we have invited Chief Bill Miller to answer a few questions in regard to fire and ambulance services related to trail planning. So again, welcome, Chief, and good to see you. And I would just like to have your input on what you think might be important while we're planning this trail.
Good evening, Jane. Thank you for having me. So I'm looking to get a little bit of feedback from you folks. If you could kind of help me out a little
Sure.
bit with what type of trail are we looking at? Are we currently looking at the trails that are already in place? Are you looking to build future trails? Give me a little background so I can help out.
Very good question. So the trail that the Upper Charles Trail is planning, we've been advised by the select board and chartered is to build, plan, design a class 5 trail system similar to the Milford Bike Trail.
Okay.
And which is different. I'm sure have a lot of other questions about other trails because I know you've had issues with other hikers and other things in single path trails, but that's not where what we're planning. Our plan is to build a wider path that would accommodate large groups of people. And if there were issues, we understand that you would, the police and fire would, be expected to respond. So what is it that we should be concerned about going forward when we're planning this? Because we're still in the planning process.
Jane, so another question. I don't want to keep opening with questions, but how many miles are you looking at for this trail?
Sure. Yeah, we're talking starting at the Milford Bike Trail, going all the way through most of East Hopkinton, crossing 135 in the vicinity of where the new Marathon Museum is, and then going up through Legacy Farms, open space, and actually into the Hopkinton State Park and connecting with the Ashland Upper Charles Trail in Hopkinton Upper State Park. So it's probably about, we really don't know yet, but it probably could be about 7.5 miles, something like that.
Wow, that's a big trail. Okay. So for us, right out of the gate, accessibility and to get our apparatus in is really important. 7.5 miles is a long distance. So let's start with accessibility, then let's talk about markings. And please ask questions. I want to hear some feedback. Having experience dealing with the Milford Bike Trail because of calls we've done on the bike trail, whether it be at brush fires or medicals, the way the Milford Trail is set up is it's made that we can take small apparatus on there, i.e. like a small 550 brush truck, an ambulance. I know community who does the EMS for Milford has had their ambulances on the bike trail, especially when somebody is injured that's a long ways in. Again, it's not a super highway. However, it is built to withstand a small vehicle. We could base it off like an F550, F550 Super Duty, which are our ambulances, as well as our Gator in the event if that need to get in also. So accessibility, gates. If you, again, I don't want to keep referencing the Milford Bike Trail, but if you do look at the Milford Bike Trail, every crossing for a major intersection is either an opening or there's some type of a gate that emergency vehicles, and it is specifically built that way so emergency vehicles can get in and assist with medical aid or anything else that may need to be done. The other point for us would be markings. Markings are huge. 7.5 miles, someone saying, hey, I'm on the bike trail and I'm not sure what we're going to call this trail. Let's just call it the upper trail for now for discussion. I'm on the upper trail and I've fallen and I've broken my ankle and I'm injured. And I'm only talking about this because we just went through this, I believe it was this past October. We were almost 2 miles in on a trail that was very difficult for us, where the person that broke their ankle was unable to walk, and we struggled to find. It took us almost 2 hours to get the person out of the woods in some really bad conditions.
Wow.
So whatever we can do to, as the planning process is going on, Jane, to accommodate emergency access. It's not about us, it's about you folks. It's about taking care of the public. It's about how can we offer the best service? How can we get to you quickly? And how can we render the care that's needed right away? That's where we're at. If we're going to do bridge crossings, anything like that, again, I would look that they would be able to sustain a 550. And I think that's a really good basis for us to work off of. And when you get closer to the points, I can give you vehicle weights. I have no problem with that. I would be honored to give you that and work with you folks on that. But out of the gate, those are the things that I'm seeing right away.
That's stuff we've talked about from time to time, but it's really nice to hear that in a more organized fashion.
Thank you.
And I thank you for that. And I know there are a couple of members who, especially with markings and things like that, have interest about where they would like to go with that. So I'm going to open it up to the members of the committee and see if they have comments or questions for Chief Miller. So wave your hand or identify yourself somehow. Let's see, who do we have out
Bill?
there?
Yes,
Jane,
Eric. Yes, Eric, go ahead.
when you talk about the weight of your vehicle, what kind of, one of the things we're struggling with is we don't have a rail bed to build on in most cases. So a lot of our planning deals with infrastructure underneath the surface of the trail.
Okay.
Do you have any statistics or anything that you could provide us of what kind of infrastructure you would need, like under a highway or under a trail or whatever?
Unfortunately, Eric, I do not. The one that sticks to my mind in building off of what you're asking is the one they did in Hudson a couple years ago. It goes under 495, down by Route 85. I know for a fact it goes under Route 85 just prior to 495. I think that would be a great one, Eric, to look at. And Eric, you know me a long time. If you can get me to a point into this trail system, partial of the way in, halfway in, whatever, and I could have to use a gator or something to get the rest of the way, that's great. But for us to hoof in, and I'll use the 7 or 7.5 miles to get to somebody or half of that distance, carrying equipment, a stretcher and things like that, that's just not time conducive. And again, if it's a major incident, a cardiac incident, somebody in cardiac arrest, somebody who's fallen, bleeding severely, time is not an essence at that point. We need to get to that patient quickly and render aid.
Well, the good news, Bill, is for the most part, this trail will go along major highways. So we may be looking at a series of emergency access points rather than try to go from Milford up 2 miles or something like that, where we could just jump off of 85 and get in.
Okay, and that's definitely something I would like to be part of and look at as you folks get your planning and it laid out a little bit further. And we may be able to pick choreographed locations that we know that a gate's going to be here and a gate's going to be here. And I'm just speaking out of terms that we know that at mile 1, there's a gate, and mile 2, there may be a gate, and mile 3, there may be a gate. Those would help us tremendously, and big enough. So again, if I have to get the gator to that point, that's great. If I can get an ambulance on the trail, which is even better, I could do that as well too. So Eric, that's good to hear.
Bill, we have Matt Chase on the call. Matt is with VHB and is our primary engineer on this whole thing. So I'm sure before we're finished, you two will get to know each other.
Sounds good. Hi, Matt. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I can, if through Jane, I'll just offer one quick thing.
Sure.
Kind of addresses Eric's piece too. And it's, we usually coordinate with the emergency preparedness teams to make sure that we design and access in an accommodating way. And I know this topic has come up with respect to the bridge, weight load and access. And to answer Eric's question, there are design criteria out there that we would design, either the roadway or the path or bridges or boardwalks. And it's usually the reference we use is an H10 or H20 loading, which is 10 ton or 20 ton. So I'm sure the chief, when we get to that point, was just Googling right now. I wasn't familiar with the 550, but I'm guessing that might be a 20-ton truck. So it might be H10.
Yeah, you're pretty close with that, and we should go a little bit extra too, Matt.
Yep,
I'm
exactly.
off of our ambulance. Our ambulances are 550 Super Duties, so there's
Okay.
a little bit more weight to them.
Okay.
But that's what we're running.
Yeah,
If that
typically
helps.
we go H20, sometimes H10, but yeah, it's something that we look into, and that's kind of the buzzwords on our end, Eric, that we use, H10, H20, and that correlates to the vehicle design.
Okay, great.
All good information. Thank you. I see Ken has his hand up. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to point out first that we're contemplating at this point that the center trail is going to be part of this trail system. And so I don't know, I don't expect the center trail to hold a 20-ton vehicle at this point over the bridges that exist right now, but maybe it could. But you know, certain sections of the trail will probably be maybe sturdier than the center trail. But at this point, we haven't talked about strengthening the center trail so as to make it more accommodating for ambulances. Another thing I'd like to point out is that the trail system as contemplated is going to have lots of grade intersections with highways, which Eric sort of said. I would hesitate to say it's going along highways. It will be in places, of course, but in other places it'll be going through some woodland like the center trail does right now. And the extent of that is probably well less than a mile. So at no point would an emergency vehicle have to go more than probably a mile to get to wherever there might be an emergency. With regards to the bridge, we know that emergency vehicles will be able to get to the bridge on both sides quite easily. So there are driveways on the north side of the contemplated position of the bridge if we build that. And the rail trail won't cut off access of those driveways to the houses. And so that's pretty close to one end of the bridge on the Hopkinton side, and on the Milford side, the bridge can be accessed from the Milford parking lot. So I don't see a good reason why an ambulance should have to be able to go over that bridge.
So are we talking bridges that are currently in place, Ken? Or are you talking about bridges that you're going to be building?
No, it's
This
just
is a theoretical bridge.
Started talking.
Okay, here's my point. If you're going to do it right the first time. If you're going to put a bridge in and you're going to do all this work, make it accessible out of the gate. It's better to build bigger and better than we should later coming back and, oh, I wish we had, or we get a major incident or something happens in there. Again, I know you folks are in the planning stages, and I love this conversation. I'd love to see it laid out a little bit more and access points and things like that. But again, I'm always going to advocate for public safety. That's my job, and that's what I believe in. However, I also like to derail the trail system too. I'm not going to deny it. So I would like to see if we're going to do it, if you folks are going to do it, that it's done with a lot of thought, especially on the specific crossings. It sounds like there's only 2 crossings. Am I understanding you correctly?
No, we've got 135,
No, many
a
crossings.
couple on Route 85 on Hayden Row. There might be one on College Street.
Okay.
So we're
Hey.
talking multiple crossings
Dave?
Jane,
along the trail. I see a hand, Dave.
yeah, I just want to try to clarify for the chief that the discussions about bridges, there's one main flyover that I think Ken was referring to. That's going to be down near the Milford Hopkinton town line.
Is that the one we can see from 85, Dave? The one behind the where the dog park is, just beyond the not dog park, one of the entrances to the parking lot where the old farm used to be. Is that the area you're thinking?
I'm not sure. It would be somewhere between College Street and the Milford town line. It's a proposed, that's what
Yep.
Ken was mentioning, and there would be access, from 85 to, the ramp ups or the ramp downs. But
Okay.
the trail, there's also, smaller stream crossings and boardwalks that would have to be built as
Yeah.
part of these trails.
Okay.
Those are probably numerous and multiple through every section where there's wetlands involved.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to be fair that, that's just not like bridges at roadway crossings. It
Got
would
it.
be like, it would be little, wetland crossings and stream crossings
So if,
within the trail system itself.
so again, without really looking at it, I'm kind of speaking off the cuff about it, but I'd like to see where those crossings are. And is those something that we could build? Like if we could get an ambulance to a certain point and then potentially the gator could pick up from there. Can they be built to withstand a gator? And two paramedics, a patient, things like that. And again, I can get you the weight measurements when it comes time to that, Matt, wherever you are. I lost you on my screen. There you are.
Yeah.
Those are things. Is that something that could be worked out as well
Oh, yeah.
too? I'd be
It's an
amenable
Yeah, I
to
mean,
that.
I think I would certainly coordinate with you folks, when these
Yeah.
certain sections are known and we have the precise locations of, this stream crossing and these boardwalks, as part of, and getting into your design process, would be able to work all those out with you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, I see Barry has his hand up. Go ahead, Barry. You're muted, Barry. Can you identify yourself and unmute yourself?
Yeah, I just had a quick one. Thank you, through the chair to the chief. So I didn't hear you say there's a requirement in a given stretch of a distance where you need to have specific access points built for emergency access.
I don't know.
When Ken said a mile, it sounded like a long stretch to me, but you didn't come back on that.
I don't know if there's any rules or regulations from our side. So I want to be cautious when I say this. A lot of our rules and regulations govern parking lots, driveways, critical infrastructure, structures themselves. I would have to honestly do a little research to see if any of our 527, which are our code enforcement laws, reflect anything for a trail system. And I will gladly put that on my docket and reach out to fire prevention tomorrow for that, Barry, and hopefully I have an answer for you.
Thank you, Chief.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, so we have
Jane,
Eli.
um,
Can you state your name?
Miller, is there a problem with injured parties informing authorities exactly where they are?
Eli, we have run into that. Yes, like I stated, there was one this past, I want to say it was October. It was very cold. What the injured hiker told us where they thought they were at and where we went in was actually almost a mile and a half off of coming in from another direction that we could have got there quicker. And it was a serious injury. It was a very serious snapped ankle. And it took us a long time. It took us almost 2 hours by the time we reached the patient and extricated them. So notification and having good markings is very, very important, especially not only for us, but for the person who needs help in a panic situation to be able to look at. And again, I'm paraphrasing, please, to look at a blue marker that says, I'm at 0.5 or I'm at mile 1 on the blue trail. And again, paraphrasing. I'll use another really good example. This past September, we were in Hopedale for a missing person on their trail system. And they have a map at the trailhead and it had all these points marked out. And we were able to use the different color codes with the different points to try to locate the missing person. So in Bill's mind, I kind of envisioned something like that again, and this marking would carry through the trail system to assist not only us, but the person calling for help as well too.
Thank you. That's good to hear.
Thank you.
Bill, is there any way we can use your new drone system?
Eric, if I had a drone, you could use it. You'd have to talk to Chief Bennett. I didn't buy into that. I don't have enough of staff.
Well, we'll get the DPW to help you.
I don't want to speak for Chief Bennett, but I'm sure he would be ecstatic to get the drone up. Trust me.
Oh, yeah. Ken, you still have your hand up. Do you have another question? Or are you all set?
Another comment here.
Sure.
One is another point to compare our trail to would probably be the existing Holliston Rail Trail.
Okay.
So there's a segment between Cross Street, which you can access off Route 16 at the Phillips
Yeah.
66 station that
Yes.
extends underneath Highland Street that goes to the cupola that's closer to downtown Holliston. And that distance I think is close to a mile. And it's got the bridge under Highland Street in the middle of that. I would expect this, that to be kind of a reference consideration. My second point is with regards to trail markers, the Trails Coordinating Management Committee is working hard to come up with a numbering system for all the trails in town, even in all the trails that are going to be available to the public. So we're in the process of doing that. We've done that at Cameron Woods, and we plan to do it in other trail systems. And of course, we hope to do that on the Upper Charles Trail system as well. And the existing Center Trail has got some markings already that could serve that purpose, but we need to increase public awareness so that people that go on those trails know to look for the markers as they pass by.
I would echo that. And again, I'm sure we can get that out through some PR help together, work that out into the public. Will like major intersections, if with this trail marking committee, are there plans like at major intersections or specific location that, you put a map up, you are here, this is marker number, and then you go a little bit further? Is that something that you folks are looking to do on that idea?
Yes, we're looking for those ideas.
Okay, that's another one, Jane, if we could do that.
So yeah, we're marking intersections in many cases. I don't know whether we'll ever succeed in marking every intersection, but many of them. And we're in discussion right now as to how many of them to mark in the Fruit Street trail system. We're up to about 30 right now as a proposed trail places, and specifically so as to facilitate safety people from being able to find people on the trail system.
Actually, someone else asked me, I will tell you, a month and a half ago, we had an injured hiker that went in behind the state forestry land off of Route 85. And it was a mile from each way. And we ended up coming in off of Summit. If anybody's familiar with that old trail system on Summit Way, as you go into Summit on the right-hand side, there's looks like a rock riverbed that actually is a trail bed. We ended up going in there a mile on foot because we couldn't get equipment in. So there's another great example. And another person that fell and broke their ankle, a serious injury, and had to be carried out. So there was a mile in and a mile out. It was very labor intensive. And there was no way for us to get even an off-road vehicle in.
Oh, this is all very useful, good information. Eli, you still have your hand up. Do you have another follow-up question?
No, I'm good.
Okay,
Jane, someone else does.
let's see, who else
Mike
has
does.
the hand up?
Mike and Bob.
Bob has a question. Yes, go ahead, Bob. Bob Snyder.
Yes, Bob Snyder here. And thank you, Chief, for this accounting you're giving us. I'm kind of curious about what you said at the beginning about your experience on the Milford Trail. It's always been my impression that we were going to build a Milford Trail-like trail in UCT Trail in Hopkinton. And the Milford Trail is, I'm quite certain, built to DOT specifications. Was planned that way, and so it has, a regular a consistent paved width, and it has shoulders, guardrails, and the like. And what I'm asking is, you said you had some experience doing some rescues on that trail. Do you have any way of comparing that end product in terms of how it served your purposes versus others?
So my experience with that versus what I've experienced in town is bar none. That type of a system, it's like the comparison I'll use is driving down 495 at 60 miles an hour versus trying to drive over Saddle Hill Road at 60 miles an hour. Okay, I think that's the best I can do. The way that is constructed, the markings for us to get in and get out, it literally is bar none. Are you folks looking to build the current trail system you're talking about to the DOT spec, or am I missing something?
Well, we're still in the planning process. That's what this is
Okay.
all about.
Excellent.
Yeah. And so we have time to plan, and we want to get as much input from the public that we can, find out what they're comfortable with. and what their expectations are. I think this conversation is very enlightening because I'm not sure the average Joe citizen out there realizes all the work that you do and all that is entailed in rescuing a person from out of the woods.
It's a lot of work, and I think you're right, Jane. And I know you've got past experience from your previous life. People don't really realize it until it happens to them or happens to someone they know. And
Right.
again, the struggle in beginning of January for us was real, trying to locate this person because the cell phone they were using, we were unable to do what we call ping to track.
Yeah.
And where the person thought they were and where they thought they came in was actually opposite of where the best way for us to come into. So markings and accessibility are such a huge piece of this.
Yeah, they really are crucial. So I'm really glad we're having this discussion now. It's very timely.
Okay, Shane, let me just ask one question.
Go ahead, Eric.
Chief, you've raised our awareness here big time. And when you tell me that a broken ankle took you 2 hours to get to, you're not going to lose the patient. But if somebody had a heart attack on one of our trails, time is critical. You know,
Eric,
2 hours you'll be taking a corpse out, not a broken ankle.
so
I think we have to be ultra aware when we do this of how we market and whatever state of the art system we can put in to identify where the person is.
Eric, I would echo that. And you are 100% correct. So 9 times out of 10, actually 10 times out of 10, what we're going to do is the first arriving duty crew will probably grab, I'll use an EMS call again. If someone's, we're using a broken ankle because that's what we've had a rash of in the last couple of months. However, if it is a cardiac incident, they're going to take whatever they can take for equipment and they're literally going to start walking in. And then they're going to start medical care on the person. But now we're waiting for additional resources to get in. What do we need to take? Is what we call a carry out? Is it a 6-person carry out? Is it a Stokes basket? Now you add all this extra weight and equipment on. What is the condition of the patient? Eric, you nailed it. You drove the point home at that point because there's a lot of facets that come into this with medical care. And I'm not talking the occasional brush fire we may have on it. We'll work through that. I'm more focused on the potential for a medical emergency, 6 miles in on this trail and us not being able to get in because there's only one way in and one way out.
Right.
Good having you on board with us, Bill.
Thank you, Eric.
Eli has his hand up again. Go ahead, Eli.
The Milford Trail is paved with a hard surface, and the Holliston Trail is all stone dust. Does either surface treatment present any safety concerns for you?
So from our side, paved is always better. The stone dust is good. It's another hard packed surface. However, if it's not maintained, if somebody doesn't go out and groom it, and I use the word groom cautiously, it can get potholes in it. I have seen the one in Holliston down by Route 16 where it's gotten potholy, from the weather and things like that and all the rain. That would not allow us. And if you're going to do a stone dust, is it going to be an engineered surface underneath it where it's going to have X amount of compacting, X amount of layers of 3/4 minus or whatever it happens to be? Is all of that going to come in play, or are we just going to put some stone dust down on top of what's there and call it a road? If that's the case, we won't be able to operate on it other than the gator. But if you're going to make a good hard base and instead of paving it, use a stone dust product, I would ask, where does it get maintained and who's going to maintain it down the road if it needed to be?
Gotcha.
And I'll leave that to Matt because I'm not an engineer and I don't claim to be. I'll leave that to Matt to figure all out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll open it up to the public now. Do our general citizens out there have any questions for our fire chief?
Yeah. So I just want to say that.
First, identify yourself, Mike.
Oh,
I know who you are, but no one else.
Yeah, Mike Wilson, Commonwealth Ave.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Hi,
So
Mike.
one of the bridge that we're talking about is a pedestrian bridge that's crossing Route 85. up by the Milford parking lot. And that bridge is, I don't think you would build it bigger and better just to get a emergency vehicle across when you can access either side easily.
And Mike, that's a valid point. And without, I need to see it physically. I think I know the bridge you're talking about, but I would like to physically see that bridge that you're talking about.
It hasn't been built. It hasn't been built yet.
All right, so it's not the bridge I'm thinking of. I'm thinking the bridge on the old railroad bed is what I was thinking.
No.
And again, if it's something that we can get into easily accessible from either side, again, I'm not opposed to that. But I don't want to have to go a mile one way beyond either side to try to come back in a mile to render aid.
Right. The other point is the 550, the F550, just to get people up to date, is like a very large pickup truck.
Correct.
And it's already been up Center Trail and crossed at least one of the bridges up there. We had a small fire up there.
Yeah, we had a brush fire. Actually, we had to come in off of
Main
Joseph. We tried coming off of Main. We couldn't get in. We ended up coming in off the other side off of Alexander Road. I think it was Joseph Road. We came in on down by the pumping station.
Okay.
So we could not get across. We got up to the bridge and could not get over the bridge because I wasn't comfortable with the weight factor of the truck going over that bridge. So we actually turned around and went back through and came in the other side.
Right.
Yeah.
Just so everybody knows what a 550 is. Dual wheels, a
Yes.
pickup truck with dual wheels.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Okay.
Great
Okay.
question. Anybody else out there? We have this rare opportunity to have our fire chief here.
Just
Chuck,
invite me, Jamie, just invite me back. I'll come back, honest.
okay, great. We're gonna call you on that.
Please do.
Okay, Chuck, can you identify yourself?
Okay. Chuck Dodgy, to the chair. Thank you, Chief Miller. I speak personally for myself, 25 Sanctuary Lane, but I am also a member of the town's Trail Coordination Management Committee and the Town Trail Committee, which the Hopkinton Trail Committee is the one that is proposing an alternative route for this trail that hopefully would be mostly stone dust, very similar to the Center Trail.
Okay.
We appreciate the need for emergency access, and that would be provided on the route we propose. And thank you for others for pointing out that the so-called bridge, it would be a bridge if it were done over 85, is simply that, it was accessible from both sides. I want to assure the chief that any work on this alternative route, as we are now from the Trails Club proposing it, would provide accessible access similar to the Center Trail. The other point I do want to make, and Ken mentioned this, is that the town organizations in regarding trails, the Trails Club, the Trails Coordination Management Committee, and the Hopkinton Area Land Trust are all working to provide intersection numbering so that your department and other public safety officials can find folks when they need to. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you.
That's great information, Chuck.
I have
Okay.
another
Yeah, go
thing.
ahead, follow up, Mike.
that's relative to the chief. And if you see something that we can make better, perhaps you can share that with us, compile all the situations, and perhaps as we go along, we can make things better so that the rescue vehicles can get through.
Yeah,
I think that's a great idea.
great.
Been a really good conversation. Anyone else before we wrap it up here with the Chief Bill Miller?
Barry wants on.
Barry? Do I see Barry out here?
Yeah.
Barry, you're
Have
muted.
another question?
Yeah, it just popped in my head. Is there a chance that some of these public trails in different areas actually have equipment at any interval that would assist in getting somebody out of the property out to a more accessible to the emergency crew, so that, after so many feet or yardage, you'd have a safety equipment mounted in the, along the routes that are furthest from a highway.
So that's a really good question, Barry. And from my knowledge, talking with the two chiefs that I know of, the Hudson chief and the Milford, they do not have anything specific like that at all. There's access points like you folks are talking about. And there's they have small UTVs, or we call it, ours would be a gator, but there's UTVs as well too, that are outfitted for quick response. They would get an ambulance to a certain point and then would have to either break off or may drive the ambulance all the way through to get to where they're at. But there is no, that I know of in this area, specific equipment stationed in a isolated area that would be used.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
We
Does that
have,
answer your question? Barry?
Yes,
does-
not that I was advocating to have a defibrillator station out in the middle of a remote trail.
Unfortunately, we couldn't because it wouldn't last with the cold. The cold would kill the battery, and it's a lot of money to leave sitting out in the woods. So I would talk you out of that one.
Good point. Okay, who else has something to comment on?
I'd carry a defibrillator if you gave me one.
There you go. Mike always to the rescue. There
The
you
other thing is the high school for Center Trail. They have gators up there also.
They're not, Mike, they're not readily accessible to us, and they're not loaded to call a patient. Our gator is specifically built, what we call an EMS gator, as an EMS body. It actually has a stretcher on it, and we can physically put a patient on the stretcher or on a longboard on the gator and have a driver and a technician still work and do what they need to do. So ours was specifically built for that.
Wow, that's awesome.
I mentioned that for Barry saying, is there anything on the trail on call? Like, I don't know.
That's fantastic information.
Yeah.
Well, we will, anything else anybody else has? Well, Chief, this has been very enlightening, and I'm sure it won't be long, we'll get to a more critical planning stage, and we'll have more detailed conversation with you as we go forward, because this is such an important subject. Everyone's concerned about safety, and I think this has been very healthy, very helpful.
Thank you for having me, Jane. I look forward to more working with you folks. I look forward to working with Matt, and when he gets a set of plans out, we can sit down and as you would say, in-person meeting, we can, we'll digest it. We'll take a look at it. I'm excited to work with you folks and help you any way I can.
I will email you our website address, Chief, because we do have a lot of documents on there.
Excellent.
But that you could, go through and follow up with Dave Del Torrio. And if you have, or us, and we can continue this conversation. This has been really, really helpful.
Well, thank you for having me.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to
Thanks.
sign off now. Good night, everybody. Take care.
All right. Have a good
Thank
one.
you. You too. Bye.
Thank you.
All right, going to the next item on the agenda. is the review of the minutes that Elaine so graciously prepared for us, and very excellent and very good. I hope everyone got a chance to read them, did they? Because I'd like to entertain a motion to accept them.
I make a motion to accept as written.
Okay, do we have a second?
I second.
I bet you do, Bob.
Emphatically and enthusiastically.
Thank you. Yeah, is that a comment, Ken? Do you have a comment? You have your hand up.
I'm not sure whether I actually was silly enough to have said on page 3 that I wanted the bridge to be single track width. I hope I said instead that which would not be able to accommodate ambulance. That was my intention. But I certainly expect the bridge to be a little broader than a single track. I'm not sure what I actually said. It's possible I didn't know what a single track was at the time, because I was a little confused whether a single track was just an ordinary walking path or not.
It's an ordinary walking path according to.
Yeah, I understand it now.
Ken, why don't you amend, why don't you do what you wish you said, and we'll vote on it that way.
I sent an email to Jane delineating a wording change. I don't know where you saw it, Jane. Did make sure that I actually thought it out.
I don't, I'm sorry, Ken, I don't think I received it. But maybe
Yeah,
you could send something to Elaine.
Yeah, okay.
Did you mean to say
I'll
a single car, like a car width? Is that what you had meant to say?
Well, I don't know. A car is still bigger than I think, but I didn't expect that it would have to accommodate vehicles of any kind. But let me forward what I sent to Jane to you, Elaine. I'll just do that.
Okay.
So let's just go on.
Thank you. All right, so how do we do this, Elaine? Do we make the motion to read with the recommended rephrasing that Ken is proposing and then vote on it?
Yep, as revised.
Oh, okay, as revised. So can
I'll revise my motion to as amended.
Okay, thank you. And now do we have a second?
Yes,
Second.
I second.
Emphatically and enthusiastically seconded by Bob. All right, all in favor, and I'll read everyone's names here. Bear with me while I get my list out. Okay, so Eric Sonnet.
Yes.
Eli Post.
Yes.
Barry Rosenblum.
Yes.
Bob Snyder.
Yes.
Jim Cirillo.
Yes.
And Jane Moran is a yes. Did I miss anyone?
Me,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah,
Ken.
I vote yes too.
All right. And Ken votes yes. Good enough.
Hats off to Elaine for taking this task through the
I
chair.
know. It's very well appreciated. Thank you, Elaine.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Okay, so the next item on our agenda is to receive updates from our town engineer, Dave Taltorio, and any background information from Matt Chase. So the floor is on you guys. Go for it.
Good evening. Through you, Jane, the update for the FAQ document was finished up. It's being reviewed for final kind of QA/QC. We hope to have that posted if by the end of the week for sure. It will be posted. I can coordinate with Eli as well as our IT department to get that posted on the town website, and working with Michelle as well to make sure that we can send it out to folks, anybody who's emailed questions or comments to the committee or to town staff. Emails were received by, town manager's office, by Jane. The FAQ will go out to those folks directly as well. And obviously I'll I'll send it out to the committee members as well. I think it's a 6-page document and it answers the 5 or 6 most common questions that were asked so far for the public outreach. Those questions were, the crossings of Hayden Row, the proposed alignment along Hayden Row, the trail within the Irvine and properties. Excuse me. The Trails Club proposed alignment questions, and a few other, wooded trails, stone dust versus asphalt, and construction costs. So those are kind of the major questions that were asked over and over in these emails, and questions received at public meetings. I think it's a 5 or 6-page document. I've also, by the end of the day tomorrow, I will have the general question and answer document as well completed. That's more or less that answers all the other questions and comments that were asked, not specifically relatable to the FAQ questions. That'll probably end up being more of a 10 or 11-page document, and we will. My goal is to post them all at the same time. So by the end of the week, we will have those 2 documents out and available to the public.
Do any of the members have any specific questions for Dave? Any of the
Yeah.
public? Go ahead, Bob.
So is this something that, is this going to be like the minutes that we all review them and give it an up or down, or is it just going out?
Well, it's more it's all fact-based answers, not opinions. It's more of from an engineering department, just to clarify questions that were asked about, if people ask questions about the right of way, they get clarified. If they ask questions about why can't we have a trail in the woods, the trail that you folks have proposed is in the woods. So there's no real, it works very hard to keep opinions out of the answers.
No, that's not what I'm asking, Dave. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm just asking, do we committee members have a last look and approve before it goes out to the public or not, or do we not?
I suppose if you folks would like to review them, sure. I mean, I can send them. I just want to be, if we could do that individually through emails directly to me, just from open meeting law. I don't want to, swerve into that lane at all. But for sure, I can send it out to each committee member directly. And if you folks have comments or questions, I can respond as such. It might just delay the process a week or so.
That's probably not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, so do other committee members have any other comments?
I agree.
I'll caution it. It's going to be the same. The answers are going to be, really just factual based.
Okay. Does that answer your concern, Bob?
Really, I was just curious about whether we were going to go through that step or not. But I think it is a good idea then to do so.
Sure.
Yeah, as long as Dave doesn't mind, that's terrific. If you want to send it to me,
I don't mind. I will just, I'll just, we'll make sure there's no deliberations between
Right.
them.
We just
I'll have
can't
discussions
a
one-on-one
conversation
with
back and
folks.
forth. So it'll be a
Sure.
1-on-1. If an individual member has a comment for Dave, they can email him directly. Is that okay with you, Dave?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Anything else on your
The second update was the website.
Yeah,
I'm going to, we've coordinated with I was just going to try to share my screen with, this never work. Try it one more time. So we've coordinating with IT on developing this was a project web page under the town website specifically for the project. I just wanted to be able to show you, we've worked on it. We have the base down, just some basic information we wanted to put in here. There'll be, different links. It's not really full yet. This was originally designed around just being a project website, but since our last meeting, kind of coordinating with Eli on transferring your existing web page site. I'm going to get the terminology wrong because I'm not a web developer, but that website, I think Eli had some interest in transferring that over to the town umbrella. So that it can be a committee web page, similar to I'm going to go to hopefully this. What do you want? I just want to show like a typical other commission. We would try to set up a web page for Upper Charles Trail Committee, kind of following this format like the Conservation Commission used. And we can combine that other project website into this front page. And you can see you have different headings with different links and that's kind of how the format will look. I know the town is in the process of revamping our entire kind of look of our town website. But we will make sure to transfer over all information on your existing website onto the new town one. It's just to be under the town umbrella, that's all. And it'll be easier for town staff to coordinate with you folks in getting information out to the public and for the public to access the town website. We can have on the front page of the town website links to and notifications, like sending out the FAQ documents. We can have a link temporarily put on the main web page of the town. So I just
certainly is a lot of work. I really appreciate all of the efforts on the town's part to support this project. This is just wonderful.
So I just wanted to, the update is, we have the boilerplate in place. It's just not live yet to the
Right.
public, but it'll go quickly. We just really have to, town staff, Michelle and I are kind of going through all the different documents and coming up with the most logical headings and folder names is really the hard part. And then we just backfill all the information into that. So I'm hoping within a week we can have this live, because a lot of the work's been kind of done. And I want to thank Michelle and IT Josh for doing all this work.
Well, I want to.
Dave, are you talking about a single website for the Upper Charles Committee or two separate websites? One like the one we have, and the second one, a project-oriented website?
The intent is to have one web page under the town's website. It'll be set up like this page is set up for the Conservation Commission. But it'll be set up for your committee. And there'll be links to all the information and documents we were thinking of putting on a project website before we realize you would like to maybe close out the Upper Charles's existing website and transfer all that information over to the town. I hope that's clear. I'm not aware. It's what we just want one web page under the town website for everything Upper Charles related.
I have no quarrel with that, but somebody has to transfer all the content over. Okay,
Michelle and, yeah, town staff are in the process of doing that. We've got most of it done already. It's just organizing it on the webpage, the new webpage, old and new and
if I may, let me just list the content that's on the website. Currently, the Upper Charles website is not hosted on the town website. It's an arrangement that my predecessor, Jeff Barnes, made, and I think was before there was an IT department in Hopkinton. But it has an about page that lists the member names and the committee functionality. It has an overview of all the pre-engineering VHB studies.
Yep.
On the campus trail connector, it has a history and a map. An EMC Park Marathon School, it covers the Mass Trails grant and photos on the bridge over Route 85. It has the original VHB study in 2016 and the revised one in 2022. There's a lot of what I would call old stuff, like the Conway report, Art on the Trail, links to different resources, the opening of the Milford Trail, and so on. And there are a couple of items, and I've kept it reasonably up to date with actions we've taken and press reports.
this is your baby on the screen, right?
Well,
Yeah. And I'm going to do everything I can to make, if we're transitioning this over to the town, we're going to bring your logo over and put it on the pictures here, and again, Eli, certainly going to coordinate with you if you want through this whole process.
okay.
Check in with you on content and layout and
It would be better to have our website on the town website. It would be a more secure situation. The website went down in June of 2021 because there was non-adequate coordination between the host and the IT department.
Yep. No, we're aware of this site and we're transferring everything over that's on here into the town's new website.
All right, well,
Web page.
I'm continually making changes. When is the transfer going to happen? So I'll just stop and.
Yeah, I can coordinate. I can give you a call tomorrow and we can talk about timeline and what might work best for you and when you would like things to transfer over and not transfer over and when you would like to close down the site or not.
Okay.
If you want to stop adding stuff tomorrow, that's
we can
okay.
Work that offline.
Yep.
Okay, moving along. Thank you both for that update and thank you for Michelle for all your hard work. Does anyone else have anything? Any members from the public have any comments or concerns?
Jane, this is Jim. Comments or concerns about the website or
anything in general?
Okay, so this is the open discussion time?
Yep, go for it.
Okay, so first, after the December public meeting, I kind of lost track of things. So from what I hear tonight, we are now looking at the feasibility of, the original concept of segments 6 through 11, and also looking at the feasibility of the so-called alternate route. That's what we're doing on these two.
Okay, so, well, I'm glad you brought this up because we were going to discuss that. That was the next agenda item. But I asked the committee members to think about next steps going forward. And I just put down, continue the review of segments 7 through 11. I think we put segments 5 and 6 to be moving forward with that with our application to the Mass Trails grant.
Are we, I don't mean to interrupt, but on 6, we're going forward with 6 around Marathon School. There's no more information we need. We don't need
5 and 6 we put in for the Trails grant,
Right.
Mass Trails grant. to, well, Dave or Matt can answer that clearer than I can.
But have we resolved
When-
any questions on 6?
Go ahead, Matt.
6, well, which was,
6 is around Marathon School, right?
yeah, which other specific questions you're asking about? I know the funding,
Well, last I remember, there was a question of whether the school committee will allow us to go around the school like that.
yeah, the properties are under the control of the select board. And
Okay,
the
so
select
have
board would
they said it's
ultimately,
okay?
well, eventually, I think your committee is going to be going to the select board and
Okay,
presenting
so-
the alignment options.
So we're proceeding with segment 5 as we were before, that is the design on 5, right up to McDermott, from McDermott to Center. And then 6 is around Marathon School, which we're proceeding on the preliminary. And then everything else down Hayden Road to College Rock to Milford, we're evaluating the feasibility of the concept that we proposed and the concept that was brought to us by others, right? We're looking at the feasibility of that whole thing, including the engineering, technical feasibility, cost, the potential cost of it, easements and all that stuff, right? I mean, it sounds to me like that's what we're doing. Is that, am I not asking it the right way?
Well, I'm not sure you're asking the right person.
Well, okay,
I look into what your committee
So,
asks
I mean,
me to look
okay,
into.
so the last thing in December was, these comments about there's an alternate route and then we got into these discussions about the feasibility, if you will, of the concept route and the number of crossings and everything else. It
Yes.
seems like we've now advanced that to the point where we are looking at the feasibility of both of those options. Those two concepts, those two routes. And part of that feasibility is looking into easements and permissions and costs and so forth, correct?
Yeah, yes, I believe that would be the
Okay.
process.
Okay. And then when we go to the Board of Selectmen or Select Board, we will present to them the entire route, starting with, segment 1, all the way up to the Milford parking lot, right? So we're taking the big picture view of everything, the entire length of it, versus taking segmental views to go to the Select Board. Does that make
Yeah, the
sense?
select board, I think per your charge is looking for, 2 or 3 alternatives.
The entire
Like-
length.
Yeah, well, they're looking for probably we're going to be looking for all the alternatives you folks have evaluated, not just one specific alignment that you presented at the, back in December.
Okay, so that's a good way to put it. So an alternative now is this concept to cross over with a bridge and go to Echo Trail and that. That's a concept an alternative that we are now considering. Is that true?
It was an alternative your committee considered, years ago, maybe 5 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, we looked at that in 2016 and it's on our webpage.
Right. And it was brought up again, some minor changes of the location of where there'd be some, a flyover or a bridge or pedestrian bridge, what do you want to refer to? Different location that the Upper Charles Trail Committee looked at 5-6 years ago. So the town asked VHB to do a little more of an evaluation, more of a continuation or an update to that 2000, I think it was a 16 memo, in regards to a pedestrian flyover to include this new location. And that was presented to the committee last week.
Yeah, it was our last meeting, Jim. I don't know.
Okay, that's the one where I came in at the very end.
Yeah,
And it's on our website right now. So you can go click on it and you can
Yeah.
read it.
Okay, all
And
right, thank,
the update is really interesting. I would recommend
yeah.
doing that.
I think I read that. I also read the EHOP thing, which was, I don't know, not completely accurate, but, okay, thanks,
Pretty
appreciate it.
accurate.
Well, the EHOP, if I could just jump in, I thought the EHOP article, I don't know who wrote it. I'm not familiar with the author, but it looked like they took that information right off of our website. So I'm not sure if you thought that it wasn't accurate for something, but
Well,
correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought it was right off of our website.
yeah, I think it is. And it
Yep.
went back to the Conway report.
Yeah,
The only thing that jumped out at me was there was a statement that there's very few wetlands that are going to be impacted across, and that's not true.
yeah, and you have to go back to Conway at the time. That was the information they had. I think since then, we've
Yeah.
developed and updated more information.
Yeah.
And they did say in the EHOP news, was a project, I think, phase 1 rollout. Stay tuned for more.
Yeah. No, right. There's going to be a part 2 or something.
Yeah, so hopefully, they do it. I thought it was accurate with the information that they had.
Yes, it was helpful.
Yes. Any other members want to jump in? Bob?
Yes, along these lines, I do think that we owe it to Peter and his group that came up with this alternative route proposal to do a thorough evaluation of it ourselves. And in my mind, that evaluation should start with the likelihood of being able to secure the cooperation of the abutters, the property owners, the neighbors, and so on. They are, in most instances, they're people that we have dealt with and have not won any cooperation from in the past. And I think we need to know if there's some reason to believe that there's hope for a different outcome now, before we even worry about this flyover bridge, because the flyover bridge assumes using that alternative route, and I like the alternative route proposal, but I really do question whether the response that we've encountered in the past from the affected neighbors would change. I think that's the most important thing for us to determine.
No, it's a good,
Jane,
it's a
through
good
you,
conversation. Go ahead.
Jane, through you, just to respond to Bob,
Sure.
and please correct me if I say anything incorrect. Any other board member, please. It's my understanding the alignment that the Trails Club presented recently, you're referring to, what has been, was the original route your committee looked at for the most part. And you ran into roadblocks with private property and so forth, and some significant outcry from some neighborhoods, Charles View and some other neighborhoods about where the, so again, I get confused when your own committee kind of refers to a new alignment, because it's something you folks looked at. You even I believe coordinated or were responsible. And again, please correct me. I don't know if that's true for purchasing the Wyckoff property.
Yeah, we did. That was all on our lead.
So again, your committee we even looked at a bridge at different locations. I think you were trying to stay out of Milford, and there's not a whole lot of, the road between College Street and Milford is windy, and grade changes are terrible. It's terrible to do anything safe along that route, other than, going over it. But you had VHB look at a couple different locations for a pedestrian bridge, as well as several locations for at grade crossings to try to get from Wyckoff over to Milford. So, as well as the same route the Trails Club presented, all the way back up to the Center Trail. So I think your committee has evaluated that, and you could put it on a plan in the Conway report. Yes, it was just a Conway report, but I mean, that's kind of a desktop study. That's what they are. They're planning level studies that identify in general based on, GIS mapping and Mass DEP
Right.
mapping. And they can quickly identify where some of the, your environmental constraints and some of the private property constraints and grade problems. And so, but your committee evaluated it and ran into issues with obtaining private property access through it. And that's kind of when Irvin Tadaro properties were purchased. So you were able to kind of, what
Yeah,
you're
that
doing
was a
now,
natural lead-in.
following the process of, this is where we're looking at. We hear what people are telling us. You heard what Charlesview people told us. You heard what the private property owners told you. Get lost. So that's kind of where you had to evaluate, more options and where that's now where you are now. That's my understanding of the process. It's been since October, I think I've been trying to catch up on all the history. So I think, to Jim's point, what the select board, I think, will be looking for is, putting all these different alignments on a map, on 2 maps, on 3 maps. I don't think they have to be fully engineered before you present them to the select board. But it's just kind of a process of, these are all the locations we've looked at, identifying on those alternatives what the roadblocks are, what you ran into, even maybe add a 4th dimension to it. This is how many years ago we ran into this problem. Maybe it's time to circle back and look at, are the property owners the same, and ask the town to, coordinate, you maybe reaching out along with you to the certain different property owners or so forth or so on. And then that way that you can at least give the select board, these are the options per our charge. There's one on the east side, one on the west side, in part, as much as possible to meet that charge. These are the roadblocks we currently have met. These are the ones we heard from the public has significant concerns about, Hayden Row. And that might be where you're at. Again, that's my 5 cents. On the
Thanks,
subject.
Dave. Well
A lot
said.
of work. This is a good point for a follow-up with you, Dave. We have not reached out to some of these property owners for about 5 years because we were asked by them not to call back. And we've had conversations. And I think the town decided it would be better because we did all of the legwork. We did Milford Waterworks, we did Hopkinton State Park, we did Legacy Farms. We did all of this reaching out to all these various partners that we hope to get involved in. And then it got to the point where some folks had said, don't call us anymore. So I guess my question to the town is this something we can pass off onto you to follow up on? Or where this is a Trails Club initiative, should they be following up with these people? I'm not sure. I know I've been advised not to reach out to these people again. Where should we go from here?
Jane?
Yes.
This is Jim. I do think, thank you, Dave, for all that. I do think that as part of what I would call a feasibility study, we have to gauge where people are in terms of easements or takings, if there's any of those. So we need that information. And I would think that it needs to be elevated from you or us to the town, if you will.
Yeah, I guess that's my question to Dave or Norman or, wherever.
Yeah, I mean, I always believe in a coordinated effort.
Yep.
But, the town, I'm sure you request some assistance from the town reaching out, similar to, we had a little success down near the college road.
We
Getting,
did.
so, we could follow
But-
that, model.
Yeah,
and-
and Norman did that, if you remember. He followed up on that.
He didn't do it alone.
This is very true. This is very true. But we could only.
Which, no, but it's always a team effort here in Hopkinton. I'll tell you,
It
there's
is
a lot of
team
people
effort.
who always
Yep.
work together to get things done. So I would, we would obviously have to collaborate with you folks on, who you contacted and who you reached out to, but
So it sounds like this.
it's one, it's a really good point, because even in what you were explaining, you use the Milford Water Company, who's, they're no longer an entity. The town of Milford
That was
now.
a private company that we reached.
Yeah,
out.
so now the town of Milford would be the person that would be the entity we would need to talk to. So, things do change over the years, and
It
and
needs to be updated.
sure, I mean, that's why I'm kind of assigned to assist the committee.
So
In
while you're
bringing this
talking,
request back to the town as a whole and saying, how can we move this forward?
okay, so here's just a little add-on for you, Dave.
Yeah.
You're gonna kill me.
No, it's all right.
When
Whatever.
we're updating our conversation with the Milford Water Company and now the town of Milford, because we obviously do need to upgrade or revisit the agreement that we had before. Maybe you can find out if they are interested in putting a bridge on the town of Milford's property and what that would entail. And if the bridge was constructed, who would apply for the tip funding and who would take maintenance and ownership of the bridge?
Good.
Once it
Yeah, I mean,
was
there would most likely, I would think, need to be some sort of intermunicipal agreement between
Yeah.
the two towns.
and that's beyond, I think, this committee's
Yes, I
ability.
agree. I agree.
Okay, good. So just a
Okay,
little
Jane?
something for your plate.
You mentioned an agreement. I'm sorry, Barry.
990 East. This is the
Do you have an
fastest
agreement,
toll-free
Jane, of some
route is
sort?
11 minutes slower.
Oh, there's some background noise back there. I don't know who is it from. We had a sample agreement with the
Oh.
Milford Water Company,
Okay, so you didn't have, you
and I've sent it to
shared
Norman.
documents, but there was
We
no
have
real.
documents, but there was never any,
Okay,
we never got to the point where we signed it. We
Okay.
sent it to our legal.
all right, I'll follow up with you offline.
All right, we can do that offline.
Sorry, Barry. I know Barry had a question.
No, I'm sorry. I see Ken's hands up. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, Ken, go ahead.
Yeah, so with regards to the roadblocks that we encountered before, so far as I know, there's only one property owner who raised an objection on the west and told us not to talk to him again. I don't know. I don't think it's reasonable to allow a single landowner to block the entire route. However strong his opinions are, I think he owes it to the town to at least explain why he has that view and whether or not he would accommodate any kind of remediation, like, for example, payment for an easement, which is something that, for all I know, we never raised with him. So maybe I'm wrong about that, but my understanding is there's a single property owner on the west who's blocked that route. Now, we've recently heard from a lot of people along Hayden Road who aren't keen on having their front yards cut into to accommodate the trail right down Hayden Road, and a lot of other people that don't like the trail going down Hayden Road. So that's one point. Secondly, there's essentially three different segments on the south side of town. There's the west of Charles View segment on the north versus basically the Hayden Row one. Then there's in the middle, there's the section which I guess is 8 or something like that, that is basically the Hughes to Granite Street one. And that one requires the town of Milford. And it also requires a little bit of work getting down to Granite Street from Hughes. But that one is independent of the northern consideration. And then south of there's also two considerations. One of them is the flyover bridge one, and the other one is the College Rock one, simplified, that goes to the east. All of those are three sections are essentially independent of one another and don't need to be, so the Trails Club did make two proposals for each of those, two of the three sections, but they don't need to be both done.
Let's take I-90 East. This is the fastest route with toll. Toll-free route is
It
11
would be
minutes
possible
slower.
that, I don't know who that is. It'd be possible to have one choice on the north and a different choice on the south with regards to whether it's the UCTC proposal or the the one proposed by the Trails Club.
I'm sorry,
to make
Jane,
that clear.
can I ask Ken to repeat the last minute of that proposal there?
So what I'm saying is there's three different segments. There's three different segments on the south side of town. Two of those segments have two alternatives each, but those two alternatives can go in either order. They don't have to be both the west or both the east. They can go either way. Just wanted to make that clear. So the flyover bridge has got nothing to do with going west of Charlesview, for example. You could go from Milford parking lot to College Rock, back over to Hayden Road, take the go across the Milford water town of Milford, north of Echo Lake, up to Hughes through the wetlands there, and then either way north of there. I said that enough.
Is that clear, Barry? It's kind of where I drove.
Yeah, it would be great
drive-through.
to be pointing to a map with some of this for me. That's the way I need to perceive it. But if we had a map in the background and
Yeah, I mean,
was
I can share my,
pointing to it as Ken was talking.
here, I could share my screen
That'd be great.
and,
Jane, before we start looking at maps, this is very disjointed. If we're going to do this, let's do it in an organized way that we can have some semblance of what we're all talking about.
sure. I wasn't sure if there was if Ken, were you asking me a specific question or?
Yeah, Dave was trying to answer Barry's clarify.
Well, Jane,
Barry.
to clarify, and for Eric, I mean, this point on the agenda is to talk about what do we do with 7 to 11? It's very pertinent. I think it's organized.
Well, maybe for you.
And I think that Ken's point through you, Jane, isn't that the committee's charge to come up with different
And I think this
alternative alignments to
conversation
present?
actually is
Right.
going to continue for meetings. I don't think we're going to solve anything tonight.
Right.
I think Dave has got a couple of things that we've just given him to do. Maybe if we get some more information,
If
maybe we could ask the town to look into the right of way between 147 Hayden Row and the Hughes property. That might be helpful. That might help the members. And I think the town might be willing to take that on.
would it be helpful, Jane, for me to work with VHB to create a map like this with all the other alternatives Ken just kind of listed, and that you folks,
that work has been done. We just have to look back on our website.
Yeah, I mean, I can work
with
with VHB to come up with a map like this that has all the other alternatives that you folks have already looked at, as well as, some of the differences that, the Trails Club presentation had in it, and go
Yeah,
from
that
there, I
information is done. That information is there. We're just
Yeah.
trying to figure out how to get through some of our problem areas, but we've done the work.
Right, but it's, I think maybe how to present it to the committee and how to present it to the public.
That'd be good. That'd be good.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question, Jane?
Yes, Barry, go ahead.
On segment 7, which is the problems segment, if you just, instead of looking beyond that right now into segment 8, 9, 10, 11, when you do this, if Dave's going to put together that map, were there were dead ends up in trying to go east on segment 7 as you entered into Chestnut Street? We had assessed all of that land back there. Is that true?
Yes, but now we're getting to the point where people want to know what is the actual right of way. And what I'm asking Dave to do is to talk with the town and find out exactly where that right of way is, so that we know the distance and if we can legitimately do this. So far, it's been at a 10,000 foot level. And now we're looking at it, we have to get down a little bit deeper. And maybe Dave can work through VHB. It could be that we're gonna go, we'll come back and revisit this and during our next meeting. And hopefully we'll have some more updated information.
I would like, Jane, I was wondering about the town-owned property there to the right of Marathon. And coming back behind in segment 7 there, coming back towards Hayden Row. Was there any possibility of shooting off the Marathon trail? Yeah, further down, Dave, on your cursor, right in there. Is there any land southeast following that back to Hayden Row? Is there any land back there that we could alleviate some of the frontage on 85 to get back to 85?
Okay.
I can answer that. Years ago, we looked at that and it's all private property back there, Barry. There is a small easement that the town has that goes out to Blueberry Lane. But if you even got out to Chestnut Street, there's no way of getting through Chestnut Street down to segment 10. It's just all privately owned.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Jane.
You're welcome. All right. Anybody else? I see Ken has his hand up. Go ahead, Ken.
A brief comment here. There was reference before, which to there being objections to people of Charlesview of the trail going right through Charlesview, and that part is correct. But I just want to remind people that was objections for people for the trail to go directly on the neighborhood streets in Charlesview, and that is what raised a lot of objections. There wasn't any formal survey taken as to whether people objected to the trail going west of Charlesview. That wasn't, it was instead directly on Joseph Road, directly on Alexander, parts of Teresa, Colella Farm Road, and I'm missing one, but right through the Charlesview neighborhood, and that's what caused a lot of people to get upset.
Maybe I can just remind you of some information that we had with the developer of the solar farm company when he was building that in back of, I think it was it Alexander? Where is that solar farm?
You're talking Chirico, yeah.
Yeah. I had many conversations with him at the time because I was trying to get an easement from him before he got the solar farm built, before we, because that's when you have to do it. You have to do it before the folks build it out. And he told me point blank, no, at the time. And I've heard now that he's maybe changed his mind. But at the time, he told me that there was no way that the folks in that Charlesview neighborhood wanted a solar farm, a trail going through the setback area. And that's where it would have to go because the solar farm is now leased to this. The property is now leased to the solar farm. So you can't go through the solar farm. You would have to go in the setback area, which is allowed. But my point is at the time, and that was only 2 or 3 years ago, he said they're not interested in that. But I don't know, maybe you're right, Ken, maybe they've changed their mind.
He was in attendance in some of our previous meetings, but I don't actually know what his opinion is.
Yeah, well, I can only tell you what the most recent conversation that I had with him, that was a couple of years ago, but it is what it is. It's worth investigating if that's what folks want us to do.
I think it's worth investigating.
I agree with Ken.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Jane, can I make?
Yeah, go ahead, Eli.
I want to echo what Barry said about having these discussions without a map. I know from prior meetings that absent the bridge, there's a large segment of Route 85 we can't cross at grade because of the topography and the curves, and it's just unsafe to cross without a bridge. So we need a map to indicate exactly where somebody's talking about crossing that. that
It's
street?
in the town of Milford, to my understanding, and that needs to be a conversation between the two towns, Milford and Hopkinton.
But so far, we haven't talked to Milford about building a bridge on Milford soil. We have no idea how they'll react.
No, we just gave that task to Dave tonight. Aren't you lucky, Dave?
That's what I'm here for, Gene.
Yep.
I agree with Eli. We're just bouncing around from one thing to the other without any connectors. Let's put together a meeting and address it in an organized fashion so we all know what's going on.
Yep, and I think this discussion needed to take place so that we can figure out where we want to go next. So I think we have a direction after tonight's meeting, and we'll see if we can pull together the next agenda afterward. But before we move on to, I think we've killed this one for tonight. Are there any liaison reports? No, I don't see any hands up. I think the big topic of the conversation probably is going to be a continuation of the discussion that we're having tonight. And anyone else have anything?
I agree with you.
Okay, good. Nothing we're going to solve tonight. All righty. So with that, I will take a motion to adjourn our meeting.
So
Good,
moved.
healthy meeting.
So
Second,
moved.
do I have a second?
Second here, Ken.
All right, so I'm going to call your name. Please respond in the affirmative. Eric,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Eli,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
and Jane is a yes. Okay, folks, and please feel free to reach out to me individually. No conversations between us folks. And if you have questions, you can go through me and I'll forward them to Dave if they require a more, a further detailed answer. All right, folks. That's a good meeting and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
See you then.
Good to
All
see you
right.
guys. Have a
See
good
you
night.
all in real life
Have a good one.
sometime.
Yeah.
Bye.